Welcome to Ben Souls, the channel where love meets possibility. If you're new here, we're all about helping you believe in the power of love and what it can do for your soul. So, grab a seat and get ready for an unforgettable journey. We're so glad you're here today. Before we jump into this emotional love story, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to share your birthday month with us. Trust me, I have something special in store for you based on your birth month. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you never miss one of our captivating stories. Your support helps us grow faster, and we can't do this without you. Before we dive into the story, let me say a quick prayer for you. May love find its way into your heart, may you find joy in unexpected places, and may every challenge you face lead you to victory. Amen. Anna was only 5 when her world came crashing down. It was a bright spring morning when the news came. Her parents, the people who had loved her with such warmth and care, were gone. The accident was sudden, unexpected. They had been driving, just like any other day, when a driver swerved out of control. In an instant, everything Anna had known was ripped away. The life she had so carefully clung to vanished, and she was left in a world that felt both vast and overwhelmingly empty. She was sent to foster care, but not just any home. She was placed with Miss Johnson, a woman whose life had not been easy, but whose heart was as expansive as the sky. Miss Johnson had little to offer in the way of wealth or material comforts, but she had something far more precious. She had love. Miss Johnson's home wasn't large, it wasn't glamorous, nor did it carry the kind of polished perfection Anna had seen in the homes of her classmates. The paint on the walls had faded in places, and the furniture was second-hand, but it was hers. It was a home full of laughter, small joys, and quiet moments. In Miss Johnson's home, Anna learned the warmth of a hug, the comfort of a kind word, and the value of doing your best, no matter what. Each day, Miss Johnson worked tirelessly to provide for Anna. There wasn't much money to go around, but there was always food on the table, and the house was warm in winter. Though they couldn't afford the newest clothes or the fancy gadgets that some of Anna's classmates showed off, Anna never felt the absence of anything important. Miss Johnson made sure Anna understood that love, not things, was what truly mattered. But as Anna grew older, she started to feel the weight of their poverty. At school, the differences between her and the other children became more apparent. Her classmates would talk about the vacations they'd taken or the latest phones they had. Anna would quietly listen, her heart heavy with the knowledge that those things were beyond her reach. She wore hand-me-down clothes, and her shoes had seen better days, but she never complained. She kept her head high and focused on what mattered most, her studies. At night, after working at the local diner to help make ends meet, Anna would collapse into bed, exhausted but determined. She would dream, not of riches or possessions, but of a future where she didn't have to feel the sting of being different. She dreamed of a future where she could escape the limitations that seemed to define her life. It wasn't about money, it was about freedom, the freedom to make her own choices, to live on her terms. Miss Johnson never once made Anna feel sorry for herself. Instead, she taught Anna the importance of resilience, of always moving forward, no matter the obstacles. Life is full of challenges, sweetheart, Miss Johnson would say, but it's the way we face those challenges that defines us. Her words were a steady source of strength for Anna, a reminder that she wasn't defined by the things she lacked. What mattered was what she carried inside her, her strength, her spirit, her ability to love and be loved in return. And so Anna pressed on, never allowing herself to fall into despair. The years passed, and while her circumstances remained humble, her heart grew stronger. She knew she had to fight for the life she dreamed of. She had to keep pushing forward, even when the world around her seemed determined to hold her back. Through it all, Anna found her escape in her studies. Books became her sanctuary, a world she could retreat into when the harshness of reality was too much to bear. Her teachers noticed her too, impressed by her quiet determination and her thirst for knowledge. They offered her encouragement, scholarships, anything they could to help her get ahead, but it was never enough. No matter how hard Anna worked, she couldn't shake the feeling that she would always be playing catch-up, always striving for something just out of reach. Yet Anna never stopped believing that something better was waiting for her. She held on to her dreams, knowing deep down that one day she would find a way out. But first, she had to survive, to push through each day, each hardship, with the strength that Miss Johnson had instilled in her. And as the years went by, Anna learned to see her humble beginnings, not as a burden, but as the foundation of everything she would one day become. It was in those moments of quiet struggle, those nights spent alone with only her thoughts, that Anna discovered the true measure of her worth. It wasn't in the things she owned or the status she held, it was in the heart that beat in her chest, in the dreams that pushed her forward, in the love she gave and received, no matter how small it seemed. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was becoming someone, and that, in itself, was a victory. By the time Anna was in her early 20s, she had become accustomed to hard work. The grind was no stranger to her. It was a constant companion, the rhythm of her life. She juggled attending college during the day with waitressing at a local cafe in the evenings. Money was always tight, the bills piled up faster than she could make payments, and the weight of her responsibilities pressed on her shoulders with each passing day. Yet, despite it all, she excelled in her studies. She was determined to finish her degree, to make something of herself, and to break free from the life that had shaped her so far. But that dream, the one she kept close to her heart, seemed like a distant star, too far to touch, too bright to reach. Every day, she worked harder, believing that one day it would pay off, but the days stretched on, and with each one, the dream felt more like a fantasy. One evening, as Anna wiped down the counter at the cafe, she overheard a conversation between two customers that would change the course of her life. Their voices were hushed, but Anna caught enough to make her heart race. They were talking about the Boston Elite Gala, an event that was, by all accounts, the epitome of exclusivity. It was an invitation-only affair, a gathering of the city's richest and most influential people, business tycoons, socialites, celebrities. Anna felt a spark of doubt. Who was she to attend such an event? It felt like a world so far removed from hers that the idea of even stepping into it seemed laughable. But as the conversation continued, something stirred inside her, a quiet yearning, a voice in her head that whispered, "Why? What if this was the chance she had been waiting for? What if this could be the door that led to the future she had always dreamed of?" The gala was a fundraiser for a local charity, and Anna had volunteered there for years. Her contributions, though small, had been noted. She had given her time, her energy and her heart to a cause she believed in. The more she thought about it, the more the idea of attending the gala began to take root in her mind. She could see it clearly now. The glimmering lights of the event, the luxurious atmosphere, the powerful people mingling in their elegant attire. It was a world she didn't belong to, but maybe, just maybe, it was a world she could learn to navigate. The possibility of making connections, of meeting people who could help her rise above her current circumstances, seemed almost too good to be true. She could network, could build relationships, that might offer her opportunities she never thought possible. This wasn't just a gala, it was a chance to change her life. A few weeks later, Anna's world shifted in a way she hadn't expected. One afternoon, as she was working a shift at the cafe, a letter arrived for her. She hadn't been expecting anything out of the ordinary, but when she saw the official-looking seal on the envelope, her heart skipped a beat. She opened it quickly, her fingers trembling slightly as she read the words. It was an invitation to the Boston Elite Gala. The invitation was from the very same charity Anna had volunteered for. It was the recognition of her dedication, her selflessness. The letter thanked her for her tireless contributions and informed her that, as a token of appreciation, she was invited to attend the gala. At first, Anna couldn't believe what she was reading. The idea of someone like her, someone from her background, being invited to such an event, seemed surreal. But there it was, in black and white, her name, printed on the invitation to one of the most prestigious events in the city. Her mind raced as she thought about it. The doubts and insecurities crept in. She wasn't wealthy. She didn't own a designer gown. She couldn't even imagine what kind of shoes would be appropriate for an event like this. Would she be able to fit in? Would people notice that she didn't belong? These questions swelled in her head, but underneath them, there was something else, something stronger, more persistent, a deep, unshakable feeling that this was her chance, the break she had been waiting for. She had to, no matter how out of place she might feel, no matter how much she doubted herself, this could be the moment that changed everything. She knew she couldn't turn it down. This was the opportunity she had been dreaming of. The gala was a fundraiser, and if she could attend, if she could mingle with the right people, if she could make just one meaningful connection, it could change her future. She could step out of the shadows and into the life she had always wanted. It wouldn't be easy, and she would likely face challenges, but this was a risk worth taking. As the days leading up to the event passed, Anna's excitement began to build, though it was tempered by a quiet anxiety. She had never attended anything like this before. She wasn't sure how to act, what to wear, or how to navigate a world that seemed so far beyond her reach. But she didn't let the fear control her. She kept her focus on the bigger picture, on the potential this night held. When the night of the gala finally arrived, Anna found herself standing before a mirror in a modest hotel room. She had done what she could to prepare. She had borrowed a dress from a friend, done her hair as best she could, and tried to make herself look presentable. But as she gazed at her reflection, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment. The girl staring back at her was someone she barely recognized. She wasn't the same girl who had worked long hours at the cafe or spent her days studying in libraries. No, tonight, she was someone new, someone who might just have the chance to step into a different life. Anna took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she had made her choice. She was going, and she was going to make the most of it. This could be her moment, the moment that would finally set her on the path to the life she had always dreamed of. And so, with one last look at her reflection, Anna stepped out of the hotel room, her future ahead of her, uncertain and full of possibility. There was still time before the event began. Her heart beat fast, a mixture of excitement and nerves building inside her. She was about to step into a world that had always seemed out of reach, a world that had always felt too far away. She arrived at the venue with a deep breath, trying to calm her racing thoughts. The building was massive, its marble steps and grand entrance shining beneath the streetlights. As she stepped inside, her breath caught in her throat. The ballroom was beyond anything she could have imagined, a vast space illuminated by crystal chandeliers, the floor gleaming like polished glass. Everywhere she looked, there was luxury, velvet curtains, golden trim flowers in full bloom. The air smelled of expensive perfume, and the soft hum of conversation floated around her like a distant song. For a moment, Anna stood frozen in the doorway, the world inside her swirling like a storm. She had imagined this moment for so long, but now that it was real, she felt like she didn't belong. She wasn't like the others here. She wasn't from their world. The guests, so effortlessly glamorous, moved gracefully through the room, their laughter and chatter filling the air. Men in tailored suits with cufflinks that caught the light, women draped in gowns that shimmered like stars. And there she was, standing in the middle of it all, in her simple, off-the-rack dress. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't expensive, but it would have to do. The dress, in a shade of deep blue, clung to her frame, just enough to be flattering. But it was nothing compared to the couture gowns that surrounded her. The whispers began, almost immediately, soft and subtle, but sharp enough for Anna to feel them like knives to her skin. She could hear them, the judgmental glances, the quiet mockery. "Who let her in?" one woman whispered, her eyes sweeping Anna's outfit with thinly veiled disdain. Anna swallowed, her pulse quickening. She could feel their eyes on her, sizing her up, assessing her like an object that didn't belong. She had always known that people could be cruel, but in this world, where every inch of a person's wealth was reflected in their appearance, the weight of it felt unbearable. But Anna wasn't about to let their judgment define her. She held her head high, her chin lifted in defiance. This was her chance. She had worked too hard, sacrificed too much to let a few glances stand in her way. Her life had never been easy, but she had learned to stand tall, to keep moving forward, no matter the obstacles. She took a deep breath and began walking through the crowd, her steps deliberate, her gaze steady. She wasn't here to impress anyone with her looks or her background. She was here to prove that she belonged, that her worth wasn't determined by her appearance or the label on her dress. She had something to offer, something that went far beyond the superficial. As she made her way deeper into the room, she caught sight of the long buffet table set with golden trays of food, elegant crystal glasses filled with champagne. The sound of clinking glasses and polite laughter filled the air, but beneath the surface, Anna could feel the tension. She wasn't just out of place, she was being scrutinized. She could see it in their eyes, as they glanced her way, some with barely disguised judgment, others with subtle curiosity. Still, she pressed on. She wasn't here to mingle for fun, she was here to make something of herself. She moved past the social groups, past the couples laughing and chatting, heading toward the back of the room where the charity representatives were standing. She knew she had to find a way to connect with the right people, to get noticed for the right reasons. It wasn't going to be easy, but she was used to that. Her whole life had been one struggle after another. Among the sea of finely dressed faces, one man stood apart. Alexander Winters, the billionaire CEO of Winters Enterprises, was a figure that demanded attention without ever asking for it. He was tall, with broad shoulders, and a presence that filled the room. His tailored black suit and polished shoes seemed to be made for someone of his stature. His sharp jawline, chiseled features, and ice blue eyes were the first things people noticed when he entered a room. Yet, despite the allure of his physical appearance and wealth, it wasn't these things that made him stand out that evening. It was his gaze, piercing, intense, and oddly focused on one person standing alone in the corner of the room. And she was like a puzzle to him, something he couldn't quite figure out, but was inexplicably drawn to. It wasn't her dress, a modest blue number she had borrowed a friend, nor was it her lack of the polished elegance of the other guests. No, it was something deeper, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. There was a strength in her posture, an undeniable quiet confidence that defied the judgment of the people around her. While the rest of the room was busy gossiping, casting judgmental glances at Anna, Alexander observed something entirely different. He saw a woman who refused to be fazed, no matter how many whispered criticisms she endured. She was unshaken by their stares, her composure unwavering as she made her way through the crowd. Her actions were graceful, her movements calm, as if she were completely at ease, despite being in a world that wasn't her own. For someone who was used to having everything, from power to respect, Alexander had never come across someone like Anna. He admired her, almost without realizing it, captivated by the aura of authenticity that surrounded her. There was no pretense, no facade. What you saw was what you got, and that made her stand out more than any designer gown ever could. As the evening passed, his curiosity about her only deepened. Alexander couldn't help but find himself watching her from afar, his eyes following her every move. She spoke with guests at the gala, her voice steady and engaging, though she always kept a polite distance from those who looked at her with condescending eyes. She didn't try to fit in, she didn't need to. There was something about her that simply was, and in a world where everyone seemed to be pretending to be something they weren't, Anna was an anomaly. She was real. Unable to resist any longer, Alexander decided to approach her. He pushed through the crowd, his eyes locked onto hers as he made his way toward her. His tall frame towered over most of the people, but as he reached her, he softened his demeanor, speaking in the same calm, confident tone that had made him a successful CEO. "Excuse me," he said, his voice smooth, almost soothing. "I hope I'm not intruding, but I couldn't help but notice how you've been carrying yourself tonight. It's rare to see someone so unaffected by all the noise." Anna was caught off guard. She looked up at him, surprised. Why would someone like him want to talk to me, she thought, but the question was fleeting. There was something in his presence that made her feel a little less out of place. She straightened herself, her chin lifting in quiet defiance, her usual hesitation fading for a moment. "No, not at all," she replied, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I'm just trying to get through the night, like everyone else." Alexander chuckled softly, the sound deep and warm. "I suppose we all are, but from what I can see you're handling it better than most." She shrugged modestly, not wanting to make a fuss. "I guess you get used to it." They continued to talk, their conversation flowing easily. Anna was surprised at how effortless it felt. She had expected to be intimidated, to feel out of place, but instead she found herself genuinely enjoying his company. Alexander wasn't like the other guests. He wasn't asking about her family's wealth or her background. Instead, they found common ground in simple things: the books they loved, the places they had always wanted to visit, and the little joys that often went unnoticed by those with too much wealth or too many expectations. Anna felt a connection she hadn't anticipated. It wasn't the kind of connection she had ever felt with anyone else in the room. There was no judgment, no underlying motive. For once, she wasn't just Anna, the girl from the wrong side of the tracks. She was just herself, and for that, she was grateful. As they spoke, Alexander found himself drawn deeper into the conversation. She was intelligent, quick-witted, and refreshingly honest. There was no pretense in her voice, just a genuine curiosity about life and the people she met. It was rare for him to encounter someone so real, someone who didn't want anything from him except honest conversation. "So," he said after a while, "what brought you to this gala, Anna? Surely someone with your background has better things to do than to stand out here in the middle of this pompous crowd." Anna's smile faltered for a moment, a flicker of doubt creeping into her eyes. She hadn't wanted to talk about her background. It was something she was trying to escape, trying to move past. But there was something about Alexander that made her want to open up. "I'm here because I've volunteered for the charity for years," she said quietly. "It's a cause that means a lot to me. But," she hesitated, "I guess I never imagined actually being invited. I didn't expect, well, all of this." Alexander nodded in understanding. "I get it. It's easy to feel like you don't belong when the world around you is so different. But that's the thing, isn't it? None of us truly fit into the boxes that society tries to put us in. We're all just people, doing the best we can." His words hit Anna in a way she hadn't expected. There was something deeply reassuring about his perspective, something that made her feel seen and understood. She didn't feel the need to explain herself further. Instead, she simply nodded. "You know," Alexander continued, his voice dropping to a more intimate tone, "I've seen people with much more fame or fortune than you or me, yet none of them carry themselves with the grace you do. There's something admirable about that." Anna blushed, the compliment unexpected but welcome. She could feel her chest tightening with an emotion she couldn't name. Was it hope, gratitude, or something more? "You've got it all wrong," she replied, her smile a little wry. "I'm just doing my best to survive. It's not about grace, it's about pushing through." Alexander's gaze softened, his expression thoughtful. "Maybe that's what grace really is, surviving, even when the odds are stacked against you." He paused, looking at her with newfound admiration. "I think that's why I'm so intrigued by you. You've got something rare, something more valuable than money or status. It's a strength, a kind of quiet power." Anna wasn't sure how to respond. She wasn't used to being praised, especially by someone like Alexander, but she couldn't deny the connection they were building. In that moment, something shifted between them. It wasn't just a conversation anymore. It was a meeting of two souls, two people who, despite all the differences in their lives, had found a common thread, a shared understanding. For a brief moment, Anna forgot about the judgmental stares, the whispers, and the world that seemed so far removed from her own. All that mattered in that moment was the person standing before her, someone who saw her not as an outsider, but as someone worthy of attention, of respect. As the night went on, the tension that had gripped her heart when she first entered the gala began to loosen. She was no longer the girl standing at the edge of the room, unnoticed and unwanted. She was someone, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough. As the evening drew to a close, the last notes of music echoed through the grand ballroom, drifting like a soft lullaby. The guests, most of them already with their coats draped over their shoulders or making their way out the door, were caught up in their own goodbyes and last-minute pleasantries. The glittering lights above cast shadows across the marble floor as the air shifted from celebration to quiet reflection. Yet in the midst of it all, Alexander Winters found himself standing still, his eyes locked on Anna. She wasn't like the others in the room. She wasn't concerned with the same things, the same appearances, or the same social norms. Her presence, her authenticity, had captivated him in a way he hadn't anticipated. What he felt for her wasn't just fascination, it was deeper, something stronger, something undeniable. Alexander knew, with certainty he couldn't explain, that Anna was the one. She had already proved that she was the real thing. There was no pretension about her, no desire for fame or fortune, no ambition beyond being true to herself. In a world built on illusions and facades, she was a breath of fresh air. Without a second thought, he found himself walking toward her, pushing past the lingering conversations and the crowd that was slowly thinning out. He couldn't wait any longer. His heart was racing, and every step toward her felt like it was pulling him closer to something monumental. "Anna," he said, his voice calm, yet full of emotion. She turned toward him, her eyes wide with a mix of surprise and confusion. She hadn't expected him to come after her, not in front of all these people. The weight of their gaze was heavy, but Alexander didn't care. He had already made his decision. He reached her side, his hand gently brushing against her. For a moment, neither of them spoke, the room's fading sounds the only noise between them. Then, Alexander did something no one could have predicted. He dropped to one knee. A collective gasp rippled through the room, but Anna, caught in the gravity of the moment, felt like everything else had faded away. There were no more whispers, no more judgmental eyes. It was just her and Alexander, alone in this surreal, unforgettable instant. "Anna," he began, his voice steady, yet trembling with sincerity. "You've shown me that real beauty lies not in appearance, but in authenticity. Will you marry me?" The world stood still, Anna's breath caught in her throat, her heart hammering in her chest. She blinked, disbelieving, her mind struggling to comprehend what had just happened. A billionaire CEO was proposing to her. The girl who had spent her life scraping by, fighting for survival, never imagining that someone like him would even notice her, let alone ask her to marry him. For a moment, she stood frozen, her eyes welling with tears. The weight of the question hung in the air, suspended in time, as the room held its breath. This was everything she had never dared to dream of, but it was happening. She could barely process the magnitude of it. Was she worthy of such a question? Was she ready for a life so different from the one she had known? But in the end, it wasn't her doubts or her insecurities that guided her answer. It was the deep, unspoken connection she had felt with Alexander from the very first moment they had spoken. He had seen her, he had understood her, and somehow, against all odds, he wanted her. With tears streaming down her face, she found her voice, soft yet filled with certainty. "Yes," she whispered, barely able to believe the word herself. "Yes, I will marry you." The room erupted into applause, the sound of clapping and cheers filling the space around them. But for Anna, it all felt like a distant echo, the noise fading into the background as she looked down at the man kneeling before her. This was the moment that would change everything. This was her moment to step into a life she had never thought possible. As Alexander rose to his feet, his eyes never left hers. He gently cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away the tears that had fallen down her cheeks. The warmth of his touch sent a wave of emotion through her, and for the first time that night, she allowed herself to feel something more than uncertainty. She allowed herself to feel joy, hope, and the possibility of a future she had once thought was out of her reach. But as quickly as her dreams seemed to come true, danger loomed, just as it always seemed to in her life. Unseen by Anna and Alexander, in the shadows of the ballroom, a man stood watching them, a man whose face was hardened by years of betrayal and resentment. He had once been Alexander's business partner, a man with a dark past and a thirst for vengeance. And now, seeing the billionaire CEO so openly tied to a woman like Anna, he felt a burning need to destroy it all. He had always resented Alexander's success, his wealth, and his rise to the top, and now, with Anna, the girl who didn't belong in this world, standing by his side, he saw an opportunity to destroy the one person who had always managed to rise above him. Anna, with her humble beginnings and her unpolished charm, was the perfect target. She was the key to bringing Alexander down, and he wouldn't waste this chance. Behind his cold eyes, a plan began to form. He would use Anna's past, her struggles, her very identity against her. He would turn the public against her, twist the truth, and spread lies. His reputation, his twisted ambitions, would lead to his attempts to ruin the very thing Alexander had built. The woman who had never asked for any of this would now become the center of a storm of rumors, half-truths, and relentless attacks. And so, as the celebrations of the evening began to wind down, the plot was already set into motion. The former partner began to work his web of lies. He whispered into the ears of the press, planted seeds of doubt among the wealthy elite, and fed false stories to anyone who would listen. He painted Anna as nothing more than a gold digger, someone trying to latch onto Alexander's fortune. The truth didn't matter. What mattered was the chaos he would create. By the time the morning came, Anna's name was already being smeared across the tabloids. Headlines screamed of her supposed deceit, her fabricated intentions. People who had once smiled at her now turned their backs, casting judgment on her with the same cruelty that had followed her throughout her life. But this time, it wasn't just her dignity at stake. It was her future with Alexander. The weight of the lies was suffocating. Anna, for the first time in years, felt the heavy burden of her past closing in on her. How could she fight back against something so insidious? How could she protect the love that had just begun to blossom, when the world seemed so set on destroying it? As the day wore on, and the damage from the rumors spread, Anna found herself standing at a crossroads once more. She could choose to let it break her, to retreat into the shadows, and let the world win. Or she could stand tall, fight back against the lies, and prove that the love she and Alexander shared was real, more real than the malicious gossip that threatened to tear them apart. Anna's resolve hardened. She wouldn't let them win. Not this time. Not when she had come so far. Not when she had found something real and true. She would fight for Alexander. She would fight for them. The days that followed the scandal were nothing short of a nightmare. The media attack was relentless. Anna's name, once a quiet whisper in the shadows of the Gala, now dominated headlines. Newspapers, tabloids, and online platforms all had something to say. None of it good. The articles painted her as a gold digger. Someone who had latched onto Alexander for his wealth, using her humble background as a tool to gain sympathy. Every whisper, every false headline felt like a blade to her heart. But Anna was no stranger to hardship. She had fought all her life, and she wasn't about to let the lies break her now. She sat at the kitchen table one evening, the glow of the lamp casting long shadows across the room. Her phone buzzed constantly, more calls from reporters, more messages from people offering their support, but all of it felt like noise, a constant reminder of the world turning against her. Her chest tightened with each notification, her mind swirling with doubt. But then she looked up and saw Alexander standing in the doorway, his figure silhouetted against the dim light. He had been with her through it all, never once wavering, never once questioning her. "I won't let them destroy us," he said softly, his voice steady and there was a fire in his eyes, an unyielding determination that matched her own. Anna had never been more grateful to have him by her side. Through the storm of rumors and accusations, he was the one constant, the one person who saw her for who she truly was. He wasn't looking at her like the rest of the world did. He wasn't seeing the headlines, the lies. He saw her, the woman he had fallen in love with, the woman he knew had nothing but integrity and love in her heart. "I know," she whispered, her voice barely a breath, "but they've gone too far this time. I don't know how we can fight this." Alexander stepped into the room, sitting beside her, taking her hand in his. "We fight it together." The weight of his words settled in her chest, a warmth spreading through her. It was true. They would fight for their love, for the life they had started to build. Anna wasn't going to let a group of strangers destroy everything she and Alexander had fought for. As the days passed, the couple began to uncover the dark truth behind the conspiracy. It wasn't just a random attack on Anna's character. There was someone behind it, someone with a personal vendetta against Alexander, someone who had been trying to bring him down for years. Anna wasn't just a pawn in some power struggle. She was the key to unraveling a much deeper, more dangerous game. It took weeks of painstaking investigation, of looking through old business files, of following the smallest of leads, but eventually, they discovered the identity of the criminal mastermind behind it all. It was a former business partner of Alexander's, someone who had been burned by a failed deal years ago. This man, driven by jealousy and rage, had decided to destroy Alexander's life, using Anna as the perfect weapon. He had been planting false stories, spreading rumors, manipulating the media, all in an effort to ruin the billionaire's reputation. Anna felt a chill run down her spine as the truth began to sink in. This wasn't just a battle for her reputation. This was about a man who would stop at nothing to get what he wanted, even if it meant destroying everything in his path. But the more they uncovered, the stronger their resolve became. They weren't going to let him win. They weren't going to let this man tear apart their lives. Together, Anna and Alexander worked tirelessly, using every connection they had, every resource at their disposal, to expose the truth. They gathered evidence, called in favors, and slowly but surely, they began to piece together the puzzle. The final blow came one late evening, when they received a call from Alexander's lawyer. The criminal mastermind behind the conspiracy had been exposed. The man's plans had been uncovered, his lies unraveling with every piece of evidence they presented. It was over. The scandal that had threatened to destroy Anna's life was now collapsing under the weight of truth. Alexander looked at Anna as the news sank in. The tension in his shoulders eased, the weight of the world lifting from his chest. He pulled her into a tight embrace, his arms wrapping around her with a sense of finality. "We did it," he whispered. "We fought for our love, and we won." Anna buried her face in his chest, her tears mixing with the fabric of his shirt. They had won. It wasn't just the battle for her reputation or the battle against the lies. It was the battle for their future, for their love, for everything they had worked for. As the weeks passed, the media frenzy slowly began to die down. Anna's name was cleared, and the public slowly started to realize the truth. But the damage had already been done. The scars left by the lies, the whispers, and the judgment would take time to heal. Yet, in the face of it all, Anna had learned something powerful about herself. She wasn't just the girl who had been abandoned and misunderstood. She wasn't just the girl who had come from nothing. She was strong. She was a woman who had fought for what she believed in, who had stood by the man she loved, and who had refused to let anyone or anything tear her down. And with Alexander by her side, she knew she could face anything. Together they had weathered the storm, and now they were standing on the other side of it, stronger, more united, and more in love than ever. Alexander had seen Anna for who she truly was, more than just a survivor. She was a woman of integrity, strength, and grace. And as they walked forward into their future, hand in hand, he knew with certainty that no matter what came their way, they would face it together. Nothing would tear them apart again. As the days went on, Alexander and Anna's bond only deepened. Their love had survived the worst test it could have faced, and they were stronger for it. The world might have tried to tear them apart, but in the end, they emerged victorious. Their love was unbreakable, a love that could withstand any storm, any challenge, and any obstacle. Together, they had found their truth, and nothing, not even the darkest conspiracy, could ever take that away. The days that followed the scandal were like a blur, a whirlwind of emotions, whispers, and the quiet relief that came with the truth finally emerging. The media, once obsessed with tearing Anna apart, now struggled to find anything left to say. The lies had been exposed, the villain behind them unmasked, and Anna had emerged victorious. But in her heart, there was a quiet sense of disbelief. For so long, she had fought against the weight of the world, against her past, against judgment, against everything that had tried to hold her down. And now, she was free, free to live her life, free to love, and most importantly, free to be herself. Anna stood in front of the mirror, her reflection looking back at her with an unfamiliar sense of calm. The woman who stared back at her was different from the one who had first stepped into that gala, unsure and uncertain, weighed down by the burden of her past. She had been through so much in such a short time: betrayal, lies, public scrutiny, but she had come out the other side stronger, more confident, more herself. And through it all there was one constant, one person who had never wavered: Alexander. She thought of the way he had stood by her, the way he had believed in her when no one else did. He had seen her for who she truly was, not the girl from a poor background, not the girl who didn't belong, but her, the woman with strength, integrity, and love. He had never asked her to change, never asked her to be anyone but herself. In the face of it all, he had loved her for who she was, and for Anna, that had been everything. Turning away from the mirror, Anna walked into the living room, where Alexander sat, his laptop open in front of him. He was engrossed in some work, but when he saw her, his face softened, a smile spreading across his lips. "There she is," he said, standing up to greet her. He opened his arms, and without hesitation, Anna walked into his embrace. The moment felt like a pause in time, a moment where the world outside could fade away, and it was just the two of them. "I still can't believe it," Anna whispered, her voice muffled against his chest. "We made it through." Alexander held her tighter, as if he never wanted to let go. "We didn't just make it through, we came out stronger than ever." He was right. The trials they had faced had not broken them. They had only forged their love into something even more unshakable. They had been tested in ways no couple should ever have to be, but they had come out on the other side, not just unscathed, but triumphant. Anna pulled back slightly, looking up at him. "You never doubted me, even when everything was falling apart. You never let me go." His eyes, softened, filled with the warmth that always seemed to radiate when he looked at her. "I never will. You've always been enough for me. More than enough." Those words, simple but powerful, were everything Anna had ever needed to hear. They were the affirmation of everything she had fought for, her worth, her strength, and the love that had carried her through it all. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for believing in me." Alexander kissed the top of her head, his lips lingering there for a moment. "I didn't just believe in you, Anna. I believe in us. And I always will." The weight of the words settled in Anna's heart, and for the first time in a long time, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace. She wasn't just fighting to survive anymore. She was living a life she had dreamed of, a life with Alexander, the man who had stood by her when the world had tried to tear her apart. As the days turned into weeks, the world around them seemed to settle back into place. The media frenzy died down, the rumors slowly fading into nothingness. People moved on, as they always did, but for Anna and Alexander, things had changed forever. They had found something real, something worth fighting for, and that something had withstood the test of fire. Their love had been tested in ways no one could have predicted, and yet, it had emerged stronger, unbreakable. It wasn't about money, status, or appearances. It was about something deeper, something that couldn't be touched by the world's cruelty or its superficial judgment. It was about trust, about loyalty, about standing by each other when the world told you to walk away. And now, with the storm behind them, Anna and Alexander were free to look ahead to the future, a future that was full of possibilities, of dreams that could finally come true. Together, they would build the life they had always imagined, a life built on love, respect, and unwavering support. As the months went by, Anna found herself thinking back to that moment in the ballroom, the moment when Alexander had knelt before her, when the world had seemed to stand still. It had been a turning point in her life, a moment when everything had shifted. But it wasn't just the proposal that had changed her, it was everything that had come after it. The struggles, the fights, the moments of doubt, and the moments of triumph. All of it had led them to this place, this moment in time, where they could finally live without fear, without the weight of other people's opinions. Their love had survived the worst, and now it would flourish in the freedom they had fought for. Anna smiled as she looked at Alexander, who was sitting beside her on the couch, his arm draped casually over her shoulder. He was her partner, her rock, her love, and together, they would face whatever the future held. No matter what came next, they knew they could handle it. Their bond was unbreakable, and it was built on something real, something no one could ever take from them. True love had prevailed. What an incredible story, right? Sometimes, the most painful moments lead to the most beautiful outcomes. If you're moved by this story, I want to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this video with someone who needs to hear about the power of true love. Remember, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you'll never miss an emotional love story like this. We've got many more to share, and I promise you won't want to miss out. Narrator cheerfully. Until next time, stay connected, Stay authentic, and never stop believing in the power of love. God bless you all, and I'll see you in the next video. Click through rate prompt. Thanks for watching. If you were moved by this love story, subscribe and share this video. Let's help spread the message that true love is real, and it's out there for everyone. Don't miss the next one.